been a long time since we've been to an America's Cup press conference, but this one was much more than that. An announcement about a merger between two big sporting teams that included some very big names. It's been a big season on foils. Where do America's Cup and SailGP rock stars go on their days off? We take a look. But it's not all about foils, as I found out at the 44 Cup in Cowes. Plus, new races, new kit, new boats and plenty more in Docktalk. So now we know, or to be more precise, now we don't. I'm talking about the venue for the next America's Cup. That news we were expecting on the 17th of September, but it didn't come. In a statement from the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron, Commodore Aaron Young said, "For the benefit of both the 37th America's Cup and the eventual host venue, we'd rather allow some more time now so we make the right decision, as opposed to a rush decision." That statement went on to say that Emirates Team New Zealand and the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron believe it is both prudent and responsible to extend the deadline in which the offshore venues can continue to progress negotiations after COVID lockdown in New Zealand has made it impossible for Emirates Team New Zealand team members to visit the venues. But it seems that there's an awful lot more behind the scenes than just getting the paperwork straight. So when that news and statement came out, many of us thought that it was probably a way of buying a bit more time to try and explore the possibility of hosting the next event down in New Zealand. But in fact, it turned out that there was plenty more going on behind the scenes. A few days after that statement came out, Emirates Team New Zealand boss Grant Dalton went on the attack, alleging that the group that was offering to support a New Zealand-based America's Cup was actually trying to get the Challenger of Records thrown out. The reason? Well, we're led to believe it's a technical issue around whether the British challenge was in fact valid. And so the wait goes on. We don't actually know when we're going to find out about the venue. To those that are new to the America's Cup, this might sound like a rather ridiculous situation. But to those of us who've followed it for quite some time, in many ways it doesn't really come as much of a surprise. When you're fighting for the oldest international trophy in sport and the most prestigious in sailing, there are bound to be bust-ups. But setting aside the issues and the problems around finding a venue for the next America's Cup, there's been some more big news, particularly around INEOS Team UK. So I've come here to Brackley, the Mercedes Formula One team's base, to find out a bit more.
It's a massive day for our team. You know, as we've now renamed ourselves INEOS Britannia, but also the partnership with Mercedes-AMG F1. Yeah, that is such a powerful partnership for us, with the design resource, the intellectual property, also the discipline and the know-how that this organisation has of being at the top of Formula One. You know, undoubtedly we can take a huge amount from that to merge our two teams and get to the same level in the America's Cup. That's the goal.
This partnership is very special to us because Jim Radcliffe and Ben Ainsley, they have set the same ambitions in sailing and in America's Cup that we have set for Formula One. And these mindsets have joined, and now we are fully on board. We want to help them to jointly win the next America's Cup.
The idea of bringing the Formula One team and the America's Cup team together is that they sort of share this common theme that to win either of those events, you have to be excellent in the sport, but also in the technical aspects of the vehicle either being the car or the boat. So Mercedes clearly have been super successful in Formula One. In fact, probably the most successful Formula One team ever technically. And they've got many people with great technical expertise which will lend themselves to us in the America's Cup Challenge.
I think a lot of people assume automatically, they're thinking, Royal America's Cup, Formula One, they've both got wings on them, they're both high performance vehicles, carbon fibre, hydraulics, electronics, software. This is all meat and drink in both organisations. So they would imagine that the synergies would be that the technology would be immediately transferable, and all of that is true. All of that is true. But actually the main thing is, it's a group of people who love a difficult challenge. Formula One is a famously complicated, difficult sport where everything has to be right or nothing is right. America's Cup, just the same. And the type of people who are drawn to that are the same, whether they have spent their life dreaming of salt water and spray or rubber and track. And it's actually the fact that there is this proper meeting of minds and souls that makes it a sort of lovely thought that we get the chance to sort of join together, hopefully bring the best of each of us to this challenge and produce a boat that we can be proud of at the end of it.
The lessons we have learned is that America's Cup is the pinnacle of sailing in the same way Formula One is the pinnacle of motor racing. And now you can discuss whether aerodynamics are the same like that hydrodynamics, but we believe in any case you learn because you simply look from another dimension. And from another dimension means that you're not doing the same thing over and over again. So many of our engineers that are involved in America's Cup actually see it as an additional way of learning. It's almost going back to university, and you can apply that then on a Formula One car.
Aerodynamics is obviously a key thing. Hydrodynamics is key in our sport, of course. The systems, but I actually think the most important thing is the culture. You come in here, and I don't know if you know, I mean, it's so impressive, but also the discipline that the design team have here, which comes from the continuity that we see in Formula One, which we don't have so much in our sport. That's a big deal, and I really think that can help us significantly in our quest to build the scene, to build the design team to get the job done.
For the last Cup, you had quite a few of the engineers that came from here that were based down at Camber Quay, weren't they? I wonder how much of that influenced then what you've done this time. Is this a mark of how successful that relationship was, that you were prepared to move lock, stock and barrel up here?
Yeah, ultimately, yes. Compared with the involvement this time around, it was relatively minimal and quite late on in the programme. But clearly the relationships that we forged in that through the last cycle gave us, myself, the rest of the team, the confidence that we could collaborate or merge with this team and it could work. Because there's always a risk for these things that, just completely different teams can do different sports and it just doesn't really ever click. But certainly we feel strongly that it can. The personalities, they're incredibly humble here, one thing, considering what they've achieved. Incredibly humble, and that's what we like to see, that modesty, and that I think that goes well with our team, and we're going to build a strong partnership.
This generation of Cup boats we've seen have clearly been the most complex technically that we've ever seen before. Do you think that this kind of collaboration at this level, this kind of partnership is now an essential way of going forward for Cup teams? Is it difficult to imagine how the marine industry could support that level of technology going forwards without help?
Yeah, I mean, it's not new. We've seen Team New Zealand, Dan Bernasconi is one of the key, if not the key guy in the design technical organisation at Team New Zealand for the last 3 or 4 cycles, coming out of a very strong Formula One background with McLaren. And other, we've had Formula One people coming through our organisation in the last 2 campaigns. So there's clearly a lot of synergies between the 2 sports. The level of those partnerships, I think it remains to be seen. This is really significant. Whether or not there'll be any other teams in this cycle that have relationships with Formula One teams remains to be seen. I've heard some quite strong rumours about that. So let's see where it ends up. But one thing is for sure, the synergies are there. The competitive element, the attention to detail is all there. It's just how hard you want to push it.
What are the boats that we're going to be seeing it in the next cycle? Is that sort of pretty much set, or are we going to see a big change in the AC75s going forwards?
I honestly don't think there'll be a big change. I mean, we had a meeting with all of the potential teams for this next cycle and the designers involved with those teams 3 or 4 months ago, and talked about the different options. I don't think there'll be massive changes. You know, the 75 class was a real success, and let's continue growing that and developing that class of boat for the long term. I think that would be great.
And the venue, I know it's not something that you're specifically involved with the negotiation, but clearly that's been the hot topic at the moment, because we thought we were going to know on September the 17th.
Yeah.
And now we don't know. How much of that affects your planning? That must be quite tricky for you at the moment, not knowing where you're going to go.
Yeah, it's difficult for us as it is for all of the other teams. And I imagine it's difficult for Team New Zealand as well, not knowing whether they're going to stay in New Zealand or they're going to go offshore. I know they're trying hard to get a deal as quickly as they can, and we very much support that. I think for everyone involved, some clarity on that will make a big step for your planning around the next event. The thing we are involved with, the protocol, we're really pushing hard, as are the Kiwis, to meet this deadline that we set mid-November. I think it's important that we set that, and certainly from our side, we're committed to that.
Good stuff.
All right.
Look forward to it.
Yeah,
Look forward
thanks,
to coming here a bit more.
Yeah, good. Good on you. Take this for a spin.
Exactly. The short-handed offshore racing scene has been on a roll this season, particularly in the 30-foot range, where the Jeanneau Sunfast 3300 has been the talk of the town. Olympic medalist Shirley Robertson and offshore solo sailor Henry Bombi have been campaigning Swell, a 3300 provided by UK-based Jeanneau dealers Sea Ventures. Managing Director Nigel Colley is an enthusiastic solo and short-handed sailor himself, and has worked hard to help develop the short-handed scene in the UK. And at the start of the Rolex Fastnet race, the fruits of his team's work were clear to see. 8 3300s crossed the start line, an impressive achievement. During just over 4.5 days of racing, Robertson and Bombi jostled for the lead, but were pipped at the post to take second place in this 62-boat fleet. The underlying message was clear though. The Sunfast 3300 is a design that delivers exactly what it says on the tin. The Royal Western Yacht Club in Plymouth know all about offshore racing. They founded the Observer single-handed transatlantic race, the Ostar, and the double-handed race around Britain and Ireland, as well as the Two-Star, a double-handed race across the Atlantic. And they've played host to the finish of the Fastnet for 96 years. They've been big players in the offshore scene, and there's plenty more in store. 2022 kicks off with the Ostar and Two-Star. Then it's the new look round Britain and Ireland race, before the Lonely Rock race that starts from Ryde on the Isle of Wight rounds the Fastnet to finish in Plymouth. 2023 sees a monster of a race from Plymouth around Iceland and back, followed by the Plymouth Fastnet 500 race that rounds the famous rock, but this time starts and finishes in Plymouth. And they're just the big ones. For those that want to stretch their legs properly, the Royal Western has plenty to offer. In the cruising scene, Bavaria have been delivering a stream of new models recently. The latest is the C38. Built on the success of a bigger sister ship, the C42, the pair were always intended as a double act, designed to move the game on in the performance cruiser world. Above and below decks, it's the same modern styling that shines through. Behind the scenes, the same sail area to displacement and wetted surface area ratios as the C42 confirm how sprightly and manageable the latest model will be. While both have been designed for short-handed sailing, the cockpit layout was also created with a full crew in mind. All of which is a good thing for the C38, because it was these shared features and more that saw her big sister win her class in the European Yacht of the Year Awards. A great start for a brand new model. The SailGP season is in full swing, and if you're a little behind, you can catch up on what happened in Plymouth and Aarhus by pressing the link just above. And one of the things that we've learnt already this season is that SailGP has become ultra competitive. Part of that is the high calibre of crews that are now on board the boats. Most of them have got an Olympic medal or a World Championship title. Some of them have got both. Some of them have got plenty of each. One of the other reasons is that they're all starting to get their heads around the technology, even though that technology is being improved and refined with each iteration. And the third reason is that when you've learnt how to do something pretty neat, there's nowhere to hide, because the data's all freely available to all the teams. So pull off a smart move and you can be pretty sure that your competitors will go and have a look at your data, decode it, learn how to do it, and do the same to you next time around. But as spectators, we've also discovered that you don't need a lot of breeze to make for some really exciting racing. These are boats that do 3 or 4 times the wind speed, and as the racing has got closer, the wind speed has almost become irrelevant. Unless, of course, you're in Aarhus, in the practice sessions before that event kicked off. With a strong breeze gusting over the trees over the racecourse and practice area, it made life pretty tricky for the crews. We had capsizes, we had a broken leg, we had a broken boat. And it was the last one that was the most worrying of all, particularly for the techies. The next stop, St Tropez in France. And that got quite a few of us scratching our heads about what we might expect down there. As anybody who's been there will know, St Tropez is pretty much about not much breeze or far too much breeze, and not really anything in between. So to see how the French event went, along with some of the issues behind the scenes, either click on the link above or go directly to the feature on the inshore playlist. Now, interestingly, the minute the SailGP Aarhus event had finished, there was a mass exodus down to Lake Garda, where the International Moth World Championships were being held. It often amuses me that when we see these top professional sailors racing in the America's Cup, SailGP, the Olympics or many other professional events, when they get some time off, they go on a busman's holiday to go and race an international foiling Moth. And that's exactly what they did after SailGP in Aarhus. Because in Lake Garda, it was World Championships time. And the 140 boat entry list read like a who's who of international yachting, with some of the top stars in the scene. I'll read you just a few. Tom Slingsby, Paul Goodison, Nathan Outridge, Ian Jensen, Francesco Bruni, Carl Langford, Phil Robertson, Dylan Fletcher. The list goes on and on. And whilst the international foiling Moth is one hell of a class and certainly very appealing, how many of us would really fancy our chances in that fleet?
There are 12 women competing at the Worlds this year, and we hope for double that at the Worlds next year. So definitely a call to all the women who are interested. Definitely the best way to get started is just to reach out to somebody and dive in.
It's fantastic to see how many women, ladies, girls are out here sailing. It was very special to see them out in the camp before the World started, getting some extra help from the class association with a bit of coaching, get them up to speed, and it's fantastic to see them all out on the water. So we had 2 good races this afternoon. The first one went really well, had a nice start and pretty much was up there, the top 2 all the way around and finished first, so really happy with that. The second one, I was a little conservative at the start. I thought a couple of boats were over, so I hung back and made it really difficult, just fighting back through the fleet. I managed to grab the lead off Goobs momentarily, but then didn't do the best tack and ended up second. But the feeling's really good. I really enjoyed sailing here. It feels like we're in paradise.
Today is an important day, 3 more races, and right in the middle of the Gold Fleet. Points are tight, obviously not for leading, but for the rest of the fleet. Tom has a huge advantage at the moment. But in racing, you never know. We just have to keep doing less mistakes as possible.
We try to fight as hard as we can. The level of the Gold Fleet is really high, and that's why we are really enjoying the Moth class.
Today was a really tough day for me. It was a little bit lighter and a little bit patchier, and I was making a few boat handling mistakes at the wrong time in the race, and it really cost me. So, I mean, all's not lost, but apart from Tom, we're all pretty tight on points still, and we got another 3 races tomorrow. Really just try to execute some clean races.
But when it came to the top silverware, it was Tom Slingsby who took it once again, dominating the racing.
Today's race was really nice. Yeah, it's really good to get out and sail in the morning breeze, a lot more wind. I wasn't thinking it was going to be that much wind, so I wasn't really set up for sort of 18, 19, 20 knots. But yeah, it was beautiful out there, and yeah, the races were great, fast races, ripping downwind at nearly 30 knots. It was a lot of fun.
And as a reward for all that hard effort and raw talent, he got to celebrate by letting his friends spray him with champagne, something he's getting pretty used to this season. And then when the t-shirts had dried out, it was back onto a plane off to St Tropez for the next leg of SailGP. So if you've ever wondered why the top sailors are just so good at foiling, there's a few clues. They never stop. When North Sails Performance decided to develop a range of technical sailing clothing, they set out with an ambitious goal: to make the best in the world. They began by addressing a number of the age-old problems, starting with that wet backside feeling. Their solution was to replace the Cordura patches that are commonly used with 4DL, a brand new non-absorbent durable laminate that's bonded to the Gore-Tex fabric. This eliminates the traditional pocket between the sewn patch and the garment that holds water and creates that damp feeling. Another focus of attention was developing Tight Weave, a new face fabric which has tightly packed threads to produce natural water repellency and high abrasion resistance. Then neck seals came under the spotlight. DuraSeal is an advanced neoprene laminate that provides a more durable, comfortable and effective alternative to the traditional latex seal. 3 key design features that form the technical cornerstones for this sleek new range. To make big boats happen, you need seriously big kit. And when it comes to the complete rig and sail handling packages for these kinds of vessels, you're into very special territory. Rondal have been at the forefront of advanced hardware for over 4 decades. But now they supply the entire rig package, including everything from the deck up as well as the underdeck control systems and the programming logic that controls them. When it comes to the rig itself, their out-of-autoclave method of construction allows them to produce a mast for a 60-metre plus super yacht in one piece. This allows a precisely optimised structure with perfect bend characteristics. And it doesn't stop there. Rondal are also active under the water, building rudders. Sea Eagle 2s is the biggest that's ever been built for a yacht. Big boats, big kit, and an even bigger reputation. Not everything that goes quickly has to have foils. Just after Cows Week and after we'd waved goodbye to the starters in the Fastnet race, the 44 Cup fleet turned up in the Solent. I spent some time following them and indeed reporting for the class a little bit. These 44-foot monohulls may look like miniature AC boats from the IACC days, but they're all carbon structure, they're huge great sail plans, and then skinny narrow waterline beams mean that they can slice downwind at well over 20 knots while delivering some pretty exciting racing. Here's how the week went. It may be a week after Cows Week and a few days after we saw that punchy Fastnet start, but the racing here in the Solent is continuing, and this time it's the turn of the 44 class, probably better known to you and I as the RC 44s, as they arrived in Cowes for the third leg of their season. The opening day started with just 8 to 10 knots of breeze and flat seas, but as the day played out, a series of subtle changes took place that kept everyone from trimmers to tacticians on their toes. The breeze built to a peak of around 15 knots and the tide turned in the middle of the day. Both helped to deliver some very close racing. By the end of play, Aleph Racing leads the fleet with a scoreline of 3-2-1. Home favourites Chris Bake's Team Aqua and Igor Lars Sirif follow in second and third respectively, with 1 bullet each as well. Day 2 saw conditions go up the scale a bit, with the breeze up in the 20 to 24 knot region for the opening race of the day. Artemis started the day with a bullet after an impressive performance in 20 to 23 knots of breeze. Team Sirif finished second and Team Aqua third. After a general recall in race 2, it was Atom Tabutui that dominated the race by developing a small initial advantage into a solid winning margin. Aleph Racing claimed the top spot in race 3 and remain on top of the leaderboard. Team Sirif follows in second with a scoreline of 2-2-2 on day 2, with Team Aqua in third.
So we're standing on what's called the battlements of the Royal Yacht Squadron, the castle as it's known, and this is a very famous start line because of course it's where the very first America's Cup, then called the £100 Cup, was started from on August 19th, 1851. And so a very famous stretch of water, and we're going to start the RC44 fleet off the very same line.
Day 3 saw the sun come out, the skies clear, the breeze drop and the sea state calm down a bit. But it also provided a new vantage point for me, on the back of Team Aqua, with Chris Bake and his crew.
Down a little bit, down a little bit. Okay, up, down, Chris, up, down.
It's always close. I mean, these boats are always close. So, but we're against the tide and only had 6-7 knots of breeze, so it wasn't overly intense. I mean, obviously, any time behind the wheel, especially with Cameron, keeps us all pretty focused. He doesn't want to see sloppy boat handling or mistakes. So no, I mean listen. Anytime we're all together, it's time we try and take advantage of.
Well, the racing on these boats, they're a little older. They're like 15 years old now, but the racing is so good, so close that sure, we're not doing the high speeds that the foiling boats are going, but we're rounding a lot of marks like 3 wide, and there's a lot of enjoyment in that. They're quite technical boats. They're hard boats to sail, enjoying it and enjoyable, and the racing's really good. I think it's pretty hard to beat, you know. Like I think they're one of the sort of tighter classes, at least, and we enjoy sailing them, they're foiling or not.
Once out on the main racing area, a 10-knot breeze, sunshine and largely flat water made for very different conditions from the day before. But the racing was tricky, confirmed by 3 different race winners. John Bassadoni on Peninsula Racing took the first win. Then Artemis Racing took race 2 of the day and Atom Tavatui won race 3. Now the overnight leaders overall remained as Elef, with Sarif in second. Both had a reasonable margin, but not really safe and home and dry just yet. But the real battle was for third, where 3 boats were battling for that position, all on equal points. Atom Tavatui, Aqua and Charisma, all on 39 points. So, whilst the weather had calmed down a bit, the action on the racecourse certainly hadn't. There was plenty more in store, and as they say, everything to play for. Despite the overnight 7-point gap between the leaders Elef and second place Sarif, experience told Hugues Lepic and his team that they should take nothing for granted. Behind them, the battle for third was intense, with 3 teams on equal points. But few could have anticipated the way that the final day played out. More breeze was always on the cards, with the forecast showing over 20 knots, and this was precisely what the fleet got. Yet this time around, the tide was with the wind most of the day, making for flatter seas, which in turn meant that there were some superb high-speed sleigh rides downhill. With Elef Racing staying in the middle of the pack for 3 races, it was Sarif who scored 2 bullets and secured second place, only 1 point away from the top spot.
It was good that we started with a few good days, but it was stressful all the way. And what's great about this class is that the competition continues all the way until the last day and the last race, and in our case the last run. So it really could have turned out very differently. But that's what's making the RC44 class so exciting and so interesting.
In the battle for third place, it was the home team, Aqua, who managed to get on the podium, also by a single point.
I mean, we just knew we had to sail a good clean race. We'd had some difficulty in the first 2, just lots of change in positions, not great starts, but we sailed the boat very well and we managed the wind conditions very well. And and it came down to the last race, the last run, where we were able to overtake Charisma.
From there, it was back to the squadron to hand out the silverware. Once again, and as always, thank you so much for watching. Please do make sure that you like us, check us out on Facebook. Make sure that you hit the notify bell on the YouTube channel, because that does make a big difference. It means that you won't miss any of the shows and features that come out. Please do keep sending us your messages. We love reading them. And in the meantime, stay safe, stay well. Until next time.